So some mornings it feels like the entire internet was built for people who don't have a brain like mine. The kind that freezes up when there's too many choices, the kind that wants to build something meaningful but short circuits on the way to just post it. If you've ever felt like running an online business is both the best thing and the most overwhelming thing your brain could do, you're not alone. For people who are neurodivergent, like those navigating ADHD, autism, dyslexia, or OCD, online business can feel like both a lifeline and a landmine. And for those of us with brain based differences that aren't always labeled neurodivergence, like AvPD in my case, the challenges can be just as real. The overwhelm, the social exhaustion, the decision fatigue, it's not all in your head, it's how your nervous system is wired. What I want you to know is this: your brain isn't broken, and you don't have to run your business like someone else to succeed. You get to build it your way. Welcome back to Boldly Introverted, the online business podcast where we talk about building meaningful, sustainable businesses that don't require you to perform, overextend, or become someone that you're not. Today's episode is personal and honestly kind of vulnerable because we're talking about what it really means to build an online business when you're neurodivergent. And not just in a quirky, creative kind of way, but in the real, lived experience, my brain operates differently kind of way. For me, that includes navigating AvPD, avoidant personality disorder, which affects how I interact, how I process social situations, and how I show up in my business. It's something I don't talk about a lot, but it's in everything I do. It's in the way I communicate with clients, the way I plan content, the way I show up, or don't, on social media. And I know I'm not the only one trying to build something meaningful with a brain that doesn't match the entrepreneurial blueprint we're constantly sold online. Now, to be clear, AvPD isn't officially classified as neurodivergent. In clinical terms, it's considered a personality disorder, not a neurodevelopmental condition. And neurodivergent itself isn't a medical diagnosis. It's a social term, a self-identification. It's used by people whose brains work differently than what's considered typical, often in ways that affect communication, processing, or regulation. The line between mental health and neurodivergence isn't always clean-cut, and a lot of people with AvPD, myself included, relate deeply to neurodivergent experiences, especially when it comes to social exhaustion, emotional overwhelm, sensory sensitivity, or the need for safety and control just to function day to day. So while I'm not here claiming a label, I am here owning the reality. My brain works differently. And the way I move through business has more in common with neurodivergent entrepreneurs than not. This episode isn't about overcoming that difference. It's about honoring it. It's about recognizing how our wiring shapes our work and designing a business that actually supports it, not fights it. If you've ever felt like you're constantly trying to follow business advice that just doesn't stick for you, this episode is for you. If you've ever wondered why planning a launch or staying visible drains the life out of you even though you love what you do, this episode is for you. And if you're tired of trying to force yourself into someone else's version of success and ready to build something that works with your energy, not against it, you're in the right place. So here's where we're going today. First, I want to talk about the unique strengths that neurodivergent entrepreneurs often bring to the table, the things that set you apart in powerful ways, even when you've been taught to downplay them. Second, we'll get real about the challenges. Executive dysfunction, time blindness, sensory overwhelm, visibility burnout. These aren't personality flaws. They're real and they deserve real strategies, not shaming. Third, we're going to dig into the tools and workflows that can actually support a neurodivergent brain in business, things that reduce mental load, simplify decisions, and make work feel more doable. And finally, we're going to wrap up with some mindset shifts that have made a difference for me. These aren't affirmations or toxic positivity. They're grounding reminders that help you move forward without constantly fighting yourself. This isn't a prescription. It's an invitation to stop molding yourself to someone else's system and start building your own. So let's start with something we don't hear enough. You have strengths that the typical business playbook doesn't even know how to measure. For a long time, I didn't believe that. I thought the way my brain worked was something I had to hide or fix. I thought real entrepreneurs were quick decision makers, super social, totally organized. I thought that because I needed quiet or extra time to process or 10 reminders to do something, it meant I wasn't cut out for this. But here's the truth. Neurodivergent brains often bring a kind of depth, creativity, and perspective that's really hard to find anywhere else. And when you stop trying to conform, those traits start to actually shine. Maybe you're someone who hyperfocuses. When something clicks, you're all in. Hours pass, the work gets deep and original. That intensity, that can be a superpower when it's directed towards the thing that matters in your business, like building offers, creating content, or mapping out systems. Or maybe you're wired to see patterns and connections other people miss. You notice what's not working in a process. You instinctively reorganize things for flow and clarity. That's systems thinking, and it's pure gold in online business, especially when you're setting up back-end automations, planning client experiences, or troubleshooting a messy funnel. There's also a deep well of empathy many neurodivergent people carry, the kind that helps you create thoughtful, human-centered content, the kind that lets you understand what your people are struggling with because you've lived it too. And that translates to real trust and real connection. And honestly, if you've been navigating a world that wasn't built for your brain, you've probably developed a kind of resilience most people never have to build. You've adapted, readapted, found workarounds, built routines, and survived burnout. That's grit. That's insight. That's entrepreneurial muscle, even if it doesn't look like it. So if you've ever looked around and thought, I just don't work like them, you're right. But that doesn't mean you're wrong for an online business model. You might be the exact kind of thinker this space needs more of. So let's get more honest about the hard stuff. The parts of being neurodivergent in business that aren't romantic or magical, but still deserve to be named without shaming. So let's just say it up front. Running a business when you're neurodivergent can be exhausting. Not because you're not capable, but because so much of the standard way of doing things isn't built with your brain in mind. And when you're dealing with executive dysfunction, time blindness, or the mental fallout from trying to force yourself into systems that don't fit, it's easy to start thinking the problem is you. But it's not. Some days, executive dysfunction makes the simplest tasks feel like climbing a mountain. You want to respond to that email or finish your sales page, but your brain is blank. Or you panic. Or you completely shut down. It's not a lack of desire, it's a neurological block. And when you don't understand that, shame can kick in really fast. Why can't I just do it? But the question isn't, why can't I do this like everyone else? It should be, how can I support my brain so this feels possible? Then there's the constant sensory and social fatigue. For me, with AvPD, even small interactions can feel emotionally loaded. The whole visibility is everything advice? Sometimes it makes me feel overstimulated and completely wiped out. It's not that I don't want to be seen, it's that I need to be seen on my terms. Otherwise, showing up feels like putting on armor just to post a faceless reel. And comparison? That one's sneaky. Watching other people show up consistently, launch with ease, crank out content daily, it can feel like a mirror reflecting all the ways your brain won't cooperate. But what you don't see is the invisible labor behind their systems, or the fact that they might not be working with the same internal wiring you are, or they might be working with a whole team of people behind them. Time blindness is another beast. You sit down to work for an hour, and somehow it's 4, or you blink and half the day is gone. Rigid routines don't work, but chaos doesn't help either. It's a constant dance between needing structure and feeling suffocated by it. All of this can make entrepreneurship feel like a series of uphill battles. But naming these struggles doesn't mean we're giving up. It means we're getting honest about the terrain, so we can build systems that actually help us. Speaking of which, We're going to talk about real tools and workflows that reduce friction, support your energy, and make running your business a little more doable. But first, I want to take a quick pause to share something that I'm really excited about. My new membership, the Empowerment Alliance, is launching to founding members on August 4th. It's built for women like us, intentional, introverted, often neurodivergent, and doing business on our own terms. If you've been looking for a space that honors your pace, your brain, and your voice, I'd love to have you there. You can check out the show notes for the waitlist link and be the first to know when it opens. All right, so diving back in. Here's what I've learned the hard way. It's not about finding the perfect system. It's about building one that doesn't make you feel like a failure every time you use it. If you're neurodivergent, chances are you've tried all kinds of planners, productivity hacks, or 30-step workflows, and then dropped them all. Not because you're flaky, but because most of them weren't built for a brain that needs flexibility, visual cues, and space to breathe. Here's what has helped me, and hopefully will help you too. Visual task management. Tools like Trello or Notion are lifesavers for me, not because they're trendy, but because they let you see your tasks. I organize mine by energy level, stuff I can do on low power days or mornings or afternoons, deep focus tasks for when I'm, really in the zone, and quick wins for when I need that momentum. Just being able to mark a card complete instead of rewriting the same to-do list over and over and over again can make a huge difference for me. So the next one is timers, reminders, and automations. I don't rely on my memory. I offload everything, from reminders to drink water, to scheduled check-ins with myself, to automated workflows inside my platform. I use FEA Create. It's not about doing less. It's about using less mental energy to do it. And then that leads into brain dump systems. When my mind is loud or swirling, I use a Notion database or a voice memo to get it all out. This clears space in my head for action, and it's especially helpful when I'm switching gears or trying to come out of a freeze. As a bonus, I can often come back to that dump for great ideas later. And then I use flexible scheduling. Rigid routines do not work for me, but rhythms do. I time block based on the kind of energy I have. Creative work in the afternoons, admin in short bursts typically, other work when I know I'll be regulated. Some days I follow it loosely, some days I don't, but having a visual plan that can bend helps keep me grounded. Templates. Templates. I use templates for everything. Content, launching, onboarding, emails, custom GPTs have been a lifesaver for me. It's not laziness, it's just building a safety net for the days when my brain says, nope, not going to happen. None of these tools are magic, but together they reduce decision fatigue. They take away the pressure of remembering or figuring it out every day, and they make room for me to actually do the work without burning myself out. So let's talk about something just as important as systems, the mindsets that make this kind of business sustainable. Not hype, not hustle, just some grounded shifts that might help you breathe a little easier. So sometimes the biggest shifts don't happen inside your tools. They happen in how you talk to yourself about what you're building. Because the truth is, when you're neurodivergent, you can have all the best systems in the world, but if you're still judging yourself by someone else's pace or capacity, it's going to feel like you're always behind. So here are a few mindset shifts that have been game changers for me, and maybe they'll land for you too. Sometimes they don't always work. Sometimes I'm not really listening to myself, but here they are. Your pace is valid. The online business world rewards speed. Launch in 30 days, hit 6 figures fast. Fast isn't always sustainable, especially if your brain or nervous system needs more time to recover between tasks or make decisions. I've had to remind myself, often, that slow business is still real business. Going at your own pace isn't falling behind, it's building something that can actually last for you. Delegation isn't weakness. It's wisdom. For a long time, I thought doing everything myself was a badge of honor. But when I started handing things off to templates or to automation, I started showing up with more energy for the work that only I could do. Delegation isn't giving up control, it's protecting your capacity. Rest isn't optional. I used to treat rest like something I had to earn. Now I treat it like it's part of the job. Because burnout isn't a detour, it's a wall. Whether that means a short walk or a slow morning or an actual weekend off, rest has to be in the system. It's not a reward. It's the reason that I can keep showing up. You're allowed to do things differently, and say so. This one was really hard for me, especially with AvPD. Being transparent can feel terrifying. The more I own how I work, the more aligned my business becomes, and the less I feel like I'm performing. These aren't mindset hacks, they're invitations to be kinder to yourself, to design with your reality in mind, to stop trying to keep up and start building from the ground you're already standing on. So let's wrap this up with some final thoughts to tie everything together. Neurodivergent entrepreneur, especially in the online space, can feel like both a superpower and a secret burden. Some days your brain lights up with ideas and clarity. Other days, it's like walking through fog with a backpack full of bricks. But here's the thread that's run through this entire episode. You are not broken. You're not too sensitive or too slow or too inconsistent for this work. You're just operating with a different nervous system, a different processing style, a different kind of brilliance. You don't need to twist yourself into someone else's version of what a successful business owner looks like. You don't have to pretend to be more extroverted, more energetic, or more on top of it than you are. You get to build something real and something that reflects you. You get to build a business that matches your brain, your rhythms, and your capacity, that honors your focus, your creativity, and your emotional depth, that supports you on hard days and doesn't punish you for needing rest. And maybe most importantly, you get to do it visibly, imperfectly, honestly. You don't have to hide what makes you different in order to be seen as legitimate. In fact, that difference might be what makes you magnetic. This path isn't linear, and it's definitely not always easy, but you're not behind. You're not doing it wrong. You're building something that fits, and that's exactly what's going to make it sustainable. So, thanks for being here with me today. I hope something in this conversation gave you permission to exhale, even just a little. You deserve a business that supports you. Not the version you're trying to become, but the one that you already are. If this episode resonated with you, if it made you feel seen or a little less alone, I'd be grateful if you'd take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. It helps me reach more intentional, introverted women who are building businesses on their own terms. And don't forget, if you want to be the first to know when the Empowerment Alliance opens its doors to founding members on August 4th, check the show notes for the waitlist link. I would love to have you in that space. Thanks for listening and for being exactly who you are. Till next week.